What shocks tourists here? Europe's museums answer. The same art locals greet like an old friend. Welcome. A cinematic tour through Europe's long relationship with nude art. Context over shock, meaning over clicks. A common scene in a European museum. A tourist, perhaps from North America or parts of Asia, rounds a corner and stops, their expression a mixture of surprise, mild shock, and perhaps a touch of awkwardness. Before them stands a classical sculpture or a Renaissance painting depicting the human form, unveiled and unapologetic. Nearby, a local strolls past, giving the artwork a familiar, appreciative glance, as if greeting an old friend. This contrast is striking, and it begs the question, why is there such a profound difference in perception? I don't think many people outside the continent truly understand just how ordinary, how deeply integrated nude art is across Europe. It isn't a spectacle designed for shock value. It's a fundamental thread in the fabric of public culture, woven through centuries of history, philosophy, and artistic evolution. It's not about sensationalism, it's about a shared visual language. Let's explore the deep historical and cultural currents that explain why Europeans and tourists can look at the same piece of art and see two entirely different things. To understand the present, we must journey into the past. The story begins not in the modern galleries of Paris or Rome, but in the sun-drenched landscapes of ancient Greece and the sprawling empire of Rome. For the Greeks, the human body was the ultimate vessel of perfection and harmony. They celebrated it in their athletic games and immortalized it in their sculpture. The nude, or gymnos, was a symbol of heroism, divinity, and civic virtue. It represented an idealized state of being, where physical prowess and moral excellence were intertwined. When the Romans conquered Greece, they didn't erase this tradition. They absorbed it, adapted it, and amplified it. Roman art continued to use the nude form to depict gods, glorify emperors, and tell mythological tales. Statues of Venus, Apollo, and Hercules became common fixtures in public baths, private villas, and city squares. For centuries, the unclothed human figure was a cornerstone of artistic expression, representing the highest ideals of civilization. After the fall of Rome, the explicit depiction of the nude waned during the early Middle Ages, often viewed through a lens of sin and shame. But it was never entirely lost. Then came the Renaissance, a cultural explosion centered in Italy that looked back to the classical world for inspiration. Artists and thinkers rediscovered the philosophies and aesthetics of Greece and Rome, and with them, a renewed fascination with the human form. Renaissance Italy set the stage for the modern European attitude. Figures like Donatello and Michelangelo didn't just copy ancient statues. They dissected human anatomy to understand its mechanics, its beauty, its expressive potential. Michelangelo's David is not merely a statue of a biblical hero. It is a towering statement on human potential, civic liberty, and divine beauty, all expressed through the perfection of the male nude. This rebirth, or Rinascimento, fused classical idealism with Christian theology and a new spirit of humanism. The body was no longer just a symbol of sin, but a reflection of God's creation, a subject worthy of scientific study and artistic celebration. This pivotal shift cemented the nude's place at the very heart of the Western artistic canon. Now, let's journey through specific countries to see how this shared heritage evolved. In Italy, the legacy of Rome and the Renaissance is everywhere. It's not confined to museums. It's in the public squares, the fountains, the very architecture of the cities. For an Italian, seeing a nude sculpture in a piazza is as normal as seeing a church steeple. It is cultural heritage, not tabloid fodder. The art of Michelangelo, Bernini, and Titian is a source of immense national pride. Children learn about these artists in school. They see their work on field trips, and they grow up surrounded by a visual culture that treats the human form with reverence and familiarity. This constant, lifelong exposure means the nude is stripped of its power to shock. Instead, it is imbued with historical significance and aesthetic value. Moving to France, we see a different but equally important evolution. Here, the state itself became the primary patron of the arts. In the 17th century, King Louis XIV founded the Royal Academy of Painting and Sculpture. This powerful institution established a strict hierarchy of genres, and at the very top was history painting, which included mythological, allegorical, and historical scenes. These grand narratives almost always featured idealized nudes, following the classical tradition. For over 200 years, academic painting normalized classical nudes. To be a successful artist in France, one had to master the depiction of the human form. This academic tradition, from Ingres to Bouguereau, filled the annual salons and national museums with countless nudes, reinforcing the idea that this was the pinnacle of high art. Even with the arrival of modernism, which challenged these conventions, the foundation had been laid. The nude was, and remains, central to the story of French art. In Spain, the relationship with the nude is more complex, shaped by the powerful influence of the Catholic Church. While Italian art often idealized the body, Spanish artists like Velázquez and Goya brought a stark, unflinching realism to their work. In Spain, religious and artistic traditions blended realism and reverence. The famous Roque Venus by Velázquez is a masterpiece of sensuality, yet it was a rare subject for its time. More common were depictions of Christ's suffering or martyred saints, where the exposed body conveyed vulnerability and piety rather than eroticism. Goya's Naked Maja was famously controversial, a direct and confrontational portrait that broke from idealized norms. This tension between sensuality, realism, and religious devotion created a unique Spanish perspective, where the nude is appreciated for its artistic mastery and emotional power. Meanwhile, in Germany and the Netherlands, the Protestant Reformation influenced art, leading to a greater focus on secular subjects like portraits and landscapes. However, artists like Albrecht Dürer were deeply engaged with Italian Renaissance ideas of proportion and anatomy. Later, Germany's 19th century Romantic and Symbolist movements and the 20th century Expressionists embraced the nude as a powerful vehicle for psychological and emotional expression. Today, Germany's galleries treat such works as essential cultural heritage, studied for their historical context and artistic innovation. From the Nordic countries' celebration of nature and the body, to the Dutch Golden Age's intimate domestic scenes, each region contributes another layer to this complex European tapestry. This historical acceptance is actively maintained and transmitted to new generations through the institution of the museum itself. European museums are not passive repositories. They are active educational spaces. The way art is presented is crucial. Curated exhibitions are meticulously planned to guide the viewer's understanding. Clear context is provided through wall texts, audio guides, and didactic panels. These tools don't just state the artist and date. They explain the work's historical background, its symbolism, and its place within the artist's career and the broader culture. They frame the nude not as an isolated object of curiosity, but as a document of its time. Furthermore, public education is a core mission. School groups are a constant presence, learning to analyze composition, theme, and technique. Many museums offer life drawing classes, teaching students to see the human body with an artist's eye, as a complex interplay of form, light, and shadow. This pedagogical approach demystifies the nude and reinforces its status as a fundamental subject of artistic study. Locals often see these pieces as familiar parts of their education and cultural landscape. We see students sketching, families discussing a painting, and everyday viewers engaging thoughtfully. It is this ecosystem of curation, context, and education that makes nude art a normalized, integral part of European cultural life. In the modern era, this calm acceptance often clashes with a global culture of sensationalism. While a European newspaper might report on the discovery of a lost Caravaggio, an international tabloid might fixate on the nudity within it, stripping it of its context for clicks. This is where the cultural disconnect is most apparent. For many tourists, their primary exposure to nudity is through media, where it is almost always linked to commercialism or controversy. When they encounter it in a museum, they may lack the cultural framework to process it as anything else. This can lead to the awkward photos, the giggling, or the genuine shock we see. Museum etiquette becomes a quiet negotiation. Most European museums have clear rules: no flash, no touching, but there's also an unwritten code of conduct. Observe respectfully, move quietly, and be mindful of others. The challenge for cultural institutions is to bridge this gap, to welcome a global audience while preserving the integrity and intended context of their collections. They must educate without being condescending, guiding visitors to see the art, not just the nudity. Of course, this normalization does not mean the conversation is static or free of complexity. Important discussions are happening within Europe about these very works. The primary one is about context and consent. While a historical nude was often created without the modern concept of model consent, curators today are increasingly addressing the power dynamics of the artist-model relationship in their descriptions. They are asking critical questions. Who is being depicted? Who is doing the depicting? And for what audience? There is also the ongoing conversation about showing this art to minors. The prevailing European approach is that, with proper educational framing, it is not only acceptable, but beneficial. It's seen as a natural part of a comprehensive cultural education, teaching history and aesthetics, while normalizing the human body in a non-sexualized context. Finally, ethical debates around restoration and repatriation are prominent. How much should a centuries-old sculpture be cleaned? Who rightfully owns art that was acquired during colonial periods? These are the conversations that animate European museums today. Deep, nuanced debates about ethics, ownership, and interpretation, far removed from the simplistic shock that the works sometimes elicit from outsiders. So, the next time you see a tourist looking surprised in a European gallery, remember the deep, invisible currents that shape that moment. What for one person is a startling encounter is, for another, a quiet moment with a piece of their own history. The nude in European art is a language developed over millennia, speaking of ideals, power, faith, and the simple, profound beauty of the human form. It's art, a testament to creative genius, its history, a tangible link to the past, and most importantly, it's a conversation, one that has been unfolding for centuries and continues today. It's a conversation we are all invited to join, with curiosity, respect, and an open mind.